What's up, y'all? It's the kid, one third the ComixKings, and welcome back to the kingdom. Or welcome if it's your first time. You know, we appreciate all the new love, all the new followers, all the new engagement from our hearts to yours. Thank you. Anyway, y'all, let's just hop right into this God Country review. God Country, for those of you that don't know, well, it's gearing up to have a movie written and based off of it, written by the series co-creator Donny Cates, and it's really one of the early books in Cates' career that really let the comic book industry know that he is here to stay and that he is a force to be reckoned with. Now, I kind of see Donny Cates as basically the comic book version of the baby, so I figured that it'd be a good time for us to dive into his version of what I consider his blank blank tape, if you're familiar with the baby's discography, God Country. Since, well, God Country is getting a sequel series soon anyway, in addition to the movie that I mentioned earlier. God Country, for those of you who are unaware, is a book from Image that first came out in 2017 that Donny Cates worked on with Jeff Shaw. They are frequent collaborators. Anyone that knows they also worked on the Cosmic Ghost Rider miniseries together. But the book centers around the Quinlan family who live in West Texas, and mostly it centers around the family's patriarch, Emmett Quinlan. Emmett sadly is suffering from amnesia, but when all of a sudden a talking sword named Valifax comes out of nowhere and allows him to regain his memory and allows for Emmett to feel complete again, it seems like hell and earth is brought down on Emmett and his family as godly forces come to take the sword back from Emmett. Now, the book is super intimate, and that's honestly one of the book's biggest strengths, as it centers around all that a family has been through and what members of that family will do and face to get their family back. Now we start to see some of Cates, literary trends being formed and being, cemented in this book, like his fascination for father-son relationships, which you can see in other books of his, like Redneck, which I reviewed not too long ago, and his current Venom run, definitely, as we see the dynamic between Emmett and his son be one of the focal points of this story, and really, the consequences of a strained relationship and the consequences of this very old and rugged view of masculinity, what it can do to your family, especially those male bonds in one's family. Now, the book is also called God Country for a reason. It focuses on the race of gods and how specifically the God of Kings sends his sons to basically cause all types of living hell for this family in rural Texas just so he can get this sword back, which he views as his legacy. So, of course, we get some interesting and just honestly great theological dialogue in this, which is probably my favorite aspect of the book. There's a lot of humor in this as well, unexpected humor, in ways that, you wouldn't really think, but it makes a lot of sense actually in the context of the story. I would say that it's almost on the level of Thor Ragnarok in terms of how they handle it and how they go about it. Not to the same extent where it's like a joke every 2 seconds. The tone is very much dramatic and action filled. It just happens to have a dash of humor as a palate cleanser. Now, speaking of dramatic and action filled, the art by Jeff Shaw, it just takes that same dramatic and action filled tone and turns it up tenfold. It's very rustic and very completely filling for the story. Shaw's art, while very animated, is still able to be dark and emotional when it needs to be. It's very much like the animation style from Samurai Jack in that sense. Admittedly, I find parts of it to look very rushed, but to play devil's advocate, the book has moments where it isn't completely meant to look like it's the best and have the cleanest art, so it makes sense for it to feel rushed in some cases. Speaking of things I felt the book could have really expanded on or, maybe dropped the ball on, honestly, maybe they'll do this in the sequel series, but I don't understand how we didn't get much of a connection to Dina, Emmett's granddaughter, from Jump. For a book that's all about family and legacy and, just family relationships from one generation to the next, we see every familial connection be tested to some extent over the course of this book, except for Dina's. We don't see much for thought process as we could have, or just see how she adapts to all this, really. All the adult characters, for the most part, have their moments of self-reflection, and we see how the events impact them, but for Dina, not really. I would like to chalk it up to the fact that maybe it's just because she's a kid, but I know that there still could have been some moments of that for her character. Overall, though, the book was really great. In my opinion, it's one of Cates' best works, and I'm excited to see how it expands upon this world in the sequel series. Guys, that's just my review. Let me know what you thought in the comments. What did you like this book? Did you hate this book? Was it eh? Let me know. It's like I said, guys, it's a kid, one third of the ComixKings. Peace and blessings. Deuces.